Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back to a special edition audio podcast recording and video, of course, of the podcast Just Start From Ideas to Action. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with each and every one of you, and I am absolutely excited. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you know that I say that I'm excited a lot, but for real, I'm really excited this time. It is because this is one of 6 episodes that we're airing throughout the year that has a video component, of course. There are 6 people who truly have taken their ideas and taken them into action, and we're going to have some conversations with them. But before we get started, I want to make sure that I tell you just a couple of quick things. First of all, this particular episode is number 188, and that's wonderful for so many different reasons, but especially because now you have 188 ways for you to be supported in starting the things that you want to do. I'm also excited because there are organizations that are supporting the work that we're doing. This episode and every single episode throughout this month, as we're talking about entrepreneurship, is sponsored by the Sommer Woods Insurance Agency. And so thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for supporting our podcast. And last but certainly not least, in addition to releasing these podcast episodes, we also produce an annual summit called the Just Start Summit. But this year, we've decided to go in a different direction. We want to meet people where they're at all across the country and beyond. So we're going to bring the Just Start Summit back in 2025. But for this year, we're going to meet you where you're at with solutions, tips, tools, resources, and storytelling like I'm going to give you today. And speaking of storytelling, it's the perfect time to get to some storytelling. I have the opportunity to talk to someone who's a friend, someone who I admire from afar. This has been a conversation in the making for quite some time. When we think about entrepreneurship, there honestly isn't a person that I can think of that is more suited for this conversation than my friend, fellow entrepreneur, change maker, ruckus maker, stuff starter for good, Miss Sommer Woods. Sommer, first of all, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So by title, formally right now, Sommer is the Chief Inclusion Officer at Woods & Watts Effect. However, Sommer's got a lot of titles, y'all, all right? I don't know if many of you in the audience know this, but Sommer has been involved in some of the most groundbreaking, pivotal, memorable conversations and projects here in the Metro Detroit area. And let me prove it to you, all right? Sommer has been involved in the M1 Rail project. She was involved in the Super Bowl when the Super Bowl was here in Detroit. She was involved in the PGA Tour, probably many of them, the John Shippen Golf Invitation, and many other projects, right? And so I'm gonna jump straight out the gate, Sommer, and ask, what's your secret sauce? Like I see you, let me tell you why I'm asking you this. I see you in a lot of spaces, but I also know from being your friend, you're very intentional. Mm-hmm. You tell it like it is, you don't hold your tongue. Right?
No, me?
No, at all, right? What is your secret sauce? Tell us.
I think from day one is always just being myself, being unapologetically myself. I remember when I was in college, I was going to the National Black MBA conference, and primarily just to it's my senior year, just to kind of hang out, and it was a lot of cute men that were there too. But anyway, just to kind of hang out. But when I was going through the process, I had a couple of interviews, and I had one interview that was with Ford Motor Company. I'll never forget this. And so I was, as I was getting ready to graduate, get a job, and my father was trying to, because my father was very conservative. He, worked at IBM, and he has his perception of what it looks like when you present in a corporate space. Mm-hmm. And he saw my outfit, because when you go to National Black MBA, it's a whole bunch of gray, navy, blue, maybe a little brown and tan. That ain't my vibe, right? And my dad was like, "You gonna wear that?" And I was like, "Yep." He was like, "Okay, so we gonna practice. We gonna go to the interview. You gonna say that?" "Yep, I'm gonna say that." "Are you gonna say yep?" "Yep, I might say yep," right? The idea in it for me is, even in that conversation with my father, and we still have these conversations to this day, that is always just being able to be myself. What I've learned is being unapologetically myself, people actually respect it more. And ironically, as an entrepreneur, they pay for it, right? I think that sometimes, especially when you speak about Black people and people of color specifically, I think that we get into these spaces and we're taught to assimilate. Assimilation is tiring, right? To try to do it, be something else. And so just being unapologetically myself has absolutely been has been my secret sauce for sure.
I wasn't going to ask you this question, but we're here and it's on the tip of my tongue. Is there a favorite? Is there a favorite project that you worked on in the city where you're like, ooh, that was it? just is so incredibly memorable.
So, I mean, you know, I'm a sports person. When I was in college, it was right around the time when Jordan was hot, so everybody wanted to be like Mike. You know, even though, you know, I can't stand him as a Bad Boys fan, you know what I'm saying? But it's all good. That's why I can't wear J's. There's something about it as a Detroiter I just can't do. But anyway, I digress. I think that for me, as I grew up playing golf, and so I didn't really know what that looked like in terms of an opportunity within a golf space career-wise. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
And although I applied for jobs at Gatorade and Nike and NBA and the NFL, all the usual suspects, I started working on my master's in urban planning and economic development at Georgia State. I was living in Atlanta at the time. And there was an opportunity for me to do an internship with the PGA Tour. So I played golf. I grew up playing golf, Palmer Park, in the middle of the city of Detroit, 6 Mile and Woodward. And I was like, oh, you know, internship, PGA Tour, do that. But that catapulted me to be in a lot of different spaces. And that main space that it did for me is that it opened up doors for me to work on Super Bowl. That by far was probably my favorite. I think it was my favorite because I've always had this goal as a sports nut, like I want to work a World Cup, I want to work the Olympics, I want to work Super Bowl. Like I have a checklist, the Masters, like I have a checklist of those different events. And so Super Bowl 40 was an opportunity to check that off the box, but to do it at the crib, number one. That was also the year that Pittsburgh Steelers were in Super Bowl, and my grandfather was a huge Steelers fan. So to be able to give him that gift, to go to the game where he's so cool and don't really, you know, when he was yelling, Franco, like that, Papa, you got to bring it down, right? That for me, I think, was just seeing the city. That became the catalyst for me just being more involved in the city and what that was. I lived away for so long. Yeah. That seeing the city in a different lens, I'm gonna definitely have to say Super Bowl 40 was my favorite. For sure.
I remember the work that you and Jennifer were doing at that time. You were literally going around the city making sure Black businesses were ready to serve people that were coming from out of town, right? Like I remember that process for whatever reason. And there are two things that I immediately think about when you say Super Bowl. Number one is, did you know I was in a Super Bowl halftime show with the Rolling Stones? Girl.
With the Rolling Stones?
I was.
We were so irritated that they was the halftime show.
Yeah, I mean, it was
and then Prince came. We said, really, we couldn't get Prince?
Nope.
This cool.
Couldn't do it.
Okay.
Couldn't do it, right? And back then, like, phones weren't like what they are now. Like,
Right.
I have no footage, no proof that I was in the halftime show. I could be lying, right? Number one. And then number two is, have you did the Olympics yet? Have you did anything with the Olympics?
No, it's still on my list.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The Olympics is the only thing that I will come out of event planning retirement for.
Again.
The only thing.
I mean, you know, I do it on a small, you know, but it's on my list. World Cup, soccer. Like I love sports. You know, I've done NCAA Final Four when it was here, Major League Baseball All-Star. You know, so I've been very blessed and fortunate. But the Olympics is still out there.
Yeah. Let's go back. I want to go back to the beginning of your starting journey because for so many people, like many of you in the audience, you truly want to start the things that you want to do, but you get stuck with the starting part, right? If you rewind back to the beginning of your entrepreneur journey, because I know that you've served in both entrepreneur spaces, but you've also you've had a job before as well, right? If you go back to the beginning of your entrepreneur journey, how did you give yourself permission to get started?
And I think that's part of maybe the reason why the Super Bowl is one of my favorites, because that was the catalyst for me to really do something. I remember when I left the PGA Tour, I actually left the PGA Tour to work for the Super Bowl host committee, and my grandmother said to me, "You gonna leave you a job that you get a paycheck every day, that you know that this next job is going to be, this is it. And when Super Bowl is over, you're looking for another gig because the host committee is only in that designated city." And I told her, I said, if I can't make something pop after Super Bowl, then forget about it. Like, throw me away. Like, whatever that is, if it's a job, if it's an entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be, just throw me away. So Super Bowl was that spark. That what I saw in Detroit, I lived in Houston, I lived in Atlanta, I was in Alabama. Like, there were certain things that I saw in terms of Black entrepreneurship that was a little bit different here because it was also the crib. The blessing in it for me was that when I started my business, I had business before I started. That people were looking at me and looking at what I did, and I had no idea. So, for example, when we were starting to end, I had no idea what we were going to do. And there was somebody at the time that said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing something within an event production space for the Jazz Fest?" Somebody I didn't even know was paying me any attention, and he was like, "You do this, you do this, you do this, you'll be great." So I literally had a client before I even started my first business. And so that for me was the a lot of it was I didn't have a choice because Super Bowl was getting ready to be over. So it was like, what you gonna do, sister? You gotta make something.
Gotta eat. Gotta
you gonna
eat.
be on this corner. You see what I'm trying to say?
Okay.
Okay. I'm just saying. But anyway, so no, I was able to make that work, right? And so from that propelled to other opportunities because Roger Penske was the chair of the Super Bowl. He was bringing the Belle Isle Grand Prix, the Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix, bringing Grand Prix back to the city of Detroit. He then reached out, right? Like, hey, is there some interest in you doing something around the Grand Prix and sports? So those became my two main clients was the Jazz Fest and the Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix. So I think for me, I was blessed that I had the work before it started, but you get into the groove, the economy started to shift, the money started to shift, and then I had to say, what does this look like? How can I still do this and work? But I think for me, my story becomes it started, it stopped, and then it started back, right? I think the Just Start for me was the second go around versus the first was, it was there versus the second go around, I was like, I'm just gonna take a leap.
One of the reasons why I thought of you for this particular episode, of course, that's all focused on entrepreneurship, is because no matter what space I see you in, whether you are in a job or whether you are doing your own thing, you're shaking it up, you're questioning things, you're pushing back, like just stuff that doesn't make sense. And so that really makes me wonder, as both an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur, how do you stay nimble? How do you stay innovative? Like, how do you stay creative versus like letting that fire burn out?
So you know what's crazy is that for me, a lot of my innovation comes from being rooted in community. I don't think that's crazy, but I'm rooted in community, right? I'm unapologetically a black woman. I'm unapologetically a black woman from Detroit. So that's one, right? You're able to stay nimble and innovative when you with your people. You see different things, and I could be in an art space. I could be at the local bar. You know, I could be whatever. Like I could be within those spaces. The other part, as you know, is my mentorship. You know, mentoring with young people, teenagers. You know, we mentor with Midnight Golf, the seniors in high school. You know, 17, 18-year, listen, they will make you rethink some stuff like, wow, maybe respectable politics can be challenged. You know what I mean? Maybe, is that really, and I know you the etiquette person, you know, so I don't want to step, you know.
Speak your truth, speak your truth.
But I'd be like, is that really what we should do? Like they push me in ways to make me think a little bit differently. And doing that for 17 years, young people have evolved because the world has evolved, technology has evolved, communication has evolved. And so I do think that's probably one of my greater strengths is that they probably motivate me in way more ways than they can ever imagine from their experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, but it's a whole nother culture because I'm not in that generation. But to see that, it gives me excitement and it also keeps me hip. They say I'm not hip. They still clown me. If they heard me say hip.
I was about to say, you just said hip, so you immediately
but it's fine.
not hip, Summer.
But these kids are trash. I tell them that too. I'm like, I hate these kids. No, but I mean, I do think that for me is the two things. Being rooted within what's happening, young people, keeping it relevant, and then being rooted within blackness. Like, that's important for me is to understand. And I think that sometimes people get a little lost in that because they think that it's not transferable to the real world. But I'm like, black people are not monolithic. Those experiences and who we are, we're not one-dimensional people that I actually end up learning and growing within a safe space in order for me to be more impactful from a bigger perspective.
Yeah. I do wonder, and I've actually always wondered about this and I never asked, so this is the perfect time to, as long as I have been working with Midnight Golf, you've been with Midnight Golf. I'm sure your tenure with Midnight Golf probably well exceeds mine. Why? Like, why is that such a firm commitment for you? And not just Midnight Golf. Like, I know that you mentor beyond that and outside of that, and you're a huge advocate for HBCUs, right? Because you went to one, Talladega, correct?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Okay. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Clear. Very clear. Very clear. Why? Like, you could literally use your time doing whatever the heck you want to do. Like, why do you commit so much to mentoring young people in particular?
It's my own experiences. I'm a village baby. Right, my mother was my grandmother, my mother holding it down. My 60-year-old auntie at the time picking me up, and she had no TV, so I was reading Reader's Digest. Shout out to Reader's Digest.
Shout out to Reader's Digest.
So I'm a village child, and so when I say that I'm rooted within community, that's what I mean. Like, that's who I am, and so if I'm not able to give that back in some way, then it's why am I here? You know what I mean? Like I don't think that I have a greater. I believe a lot of times when we think about, it was a point where I had a couple young people who were almost like living with me, right? Like that I was taking care of, trying to help. And I think for me, it was just a matter of when you see the potential in what our young people can be and how they can grow with that. I mean, why not, right? And you're correct. It is a significant commitment. Yeah. But I love it. Like, I love them. Like, they keep me fresh. They keep me live. So it's very inspiring. You know what I mean? But definitely it still goes back to just, being rooted within community.
Yeah. The truth about the Just Start platform, the Just Start podcast, is that we, I believe, do two things. We commit very strongly to two things. Number one is providing anyone who's in our sphere with the resources, tips, and tools to start the things that they want to do. But we also talk about like the hard stuff and also the stuff that just doesn't feel good, the stuff that went wrong. And when I think about this next question I'm going to ask you, I'm excited to ask you this because I know that you speak the truth, right? If you think back to the beginning or to any pivotal part of your journey, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you made in the past, or maybe one that you keep finding yourself falling into again?
I think the biggest mistake as an entrepreneur is sometimes overcommitting. I laugh because I laugh about Detroiters. I'm like, I think we can do it all. They be like, oh yeah, I can do that. You want some flowers? I'm a florist. You need me to cook you a pancake? I can cook a pancake.
And I can do a backflip.
You see what I'm saying? At the same time. So I think that sometimes overcommitting. There was a point when I started this new venture with my business partner with Woods and Watts. We really are, we're still trying to figure out what that groove is, right? Like, what's the industry? What do we want to focus on? How does that play out? But there was a project that we probably should not have taken, and it wasn't really that interesting. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You could take what you want to take and what you don't want. You could commit to what you want to and didn't. And I think that it was something that it was like, oh, it was a nice contract detail. And then we weren't successful with it. And it still bothers me to this day. Like, to this day, because I still see them because it's a small world. And I'm just like, and I was upfront with them. Like, listen, we probably should not have taken this. We did not produce. But again, that for me was being more intentional about a mutual exploration process. A lot of times what happens as entrepreneurs, you have an RFP process and then you're the one tap dancing, right? That for me, that's dead. Like, it has to be mutual. Just as you're asking me questions, I'm asking you questions. I need to understand where you lie, what is your work culture, how do you turn things around, what's important for you, and not just as a company, but for you personally. What does that look like, right? Because that matters in terms of leadership. And that sometimes throws people off. I've had a couple of potential clients that literally told me, like, I don't know what this has to do with anything. You know what, this is a great conversation. Thank you for coming out. God bless you. Good night. Like, I can't do this. You know what I mean? And so I think that was for me in the next going round of this RFP, getting contract opportunities, is to make it a mutual exploration. So that definitely I still feel bad, even though we were like, here's the money, you know what I mean? But it's something that we definitely overcommitted, and it just wasn't a good fit, and we should have just let it go. Yeah.
Especially for the benefit of our audience listening here live, and also people that are watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching this video. What was the shiny object? Was it the money in that? Was it the cachet of what or who it was?
No, it wasn't it wasn't the money. A lot of it was we were starting as a new business. Even though I have one business that I've had since Super Bowl, but then the other one was new. And so it was a matter of trying to get clients to have a level of credibility. As you know, in the RFP process, they start asking you who are your clients, so it was new. So it was really more just to be able to have more clients, right, to have a return on the investment as we go out into the marketplace. So it wasn't the money as much as it was like, oh, look at us, we have more than 2 clients. This is what it looks like. Because even though I have a beautiful body of work, over 20 years of work, it's still a lot of questions in the sense of, well, what you doing now? What does that look like? That people sometimes ignore. So that was the shiny object. Now, that's not a bad thing. It's just that wasn't a good fit. It should have been another smaller project to be able to build that clientele that we're able to build up on.
So because I know you personally, and because I think we've been in each other's ether for the longest time, I know that you very intentionally show up. Like you're not everywhere, right? Lots of people know you, but you're just not everywhere. But it does make me wonder, considering that you're building this business, considering that you have commitments in a lot of different spaces, how do you maintain community?
So I have to, this is tricky, right? Mm-hmm. So because of the work that we do, word spread, so we're only as good as our new client is our last client. And so we've been very fortunate that we've had referrals and people have told people about what we do. Because of the body of work that myself and my business partner have, that carries weight and continuously carries weight. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was so jacked up with that one project, right? Because that's not my MO. That's not, you know what I mean? You're going to get some work. I'm going to bust my butt. But sometimes it's challenging in some of these spaces. The reason why I'm not always out is because I don't do well with this is what I tell. Hey, what are you doing? Can I talk? I don't do well with that, right?
Is it the small talk, or you feel like the sizing up that's happening?
I feel like a lot of it be, you know what I'm saying? I know I have to be nice on your podcast, but I feel like some of it be a little questionable.
Okay.
So how honest is this conversation? Like, is this it could be a lot of just doing too much. And the irony of it, I'm gonna be real, like the whole Just Start, that's what I love about it. When I listen to a couple of your podcasts, people talk about, I just took a leap. For me, a part of that too was, I was looking at other people, I was like, if these cats are getting business and they ain't got damn body of work and they janky, then the mug, then let me go on and get back into this and do this full time versus dilly-dallying on the side. Yeah. So I think a part of that is that social space that I don't necessarily always do well in because I can cut through. I just want to cut through all the, I can't do all that.
But and that's fine. Like no, that's fine. But I think more so what I'm curious about, in addition to your answer, what I'm curious about is you have a tribe, right? You have people that you put on. You've put me on before, right? How do you continue to maintain the community that you want to be a part of?
Oh. Yeah, so I'm very intentional with that. Like, I try to be. I actually love that about you because you, like, I always laugh. I was just telling my best friend that, like, certain people, I'm like, that girl be on it. Emails, calls, sending stuff. Hey, listen, I aspire to be better.
Listen, okay? Although I know, and everybody in the audience knows, because I know just about everybody in the audience personally, I be sending some messages and some reminders.
You be on it.
Hey, in 2 hours and 25 minutes, we're going to be together, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Right?
You be on it. I got to do better with that. But I think for me, if I'm able to put on one person, if they can put on somebody else, that's what it is for me. And so I am intentional trying to touch in when you talked about not just midnight golf mentors, but I also have, adult mentorship. And I'm very proud of my, I still call them my babies, but they grown and married and kids and all that.
Which is wild, by the way.
Which is crazy, right? But even as it relates to within that space of community for me, when I say that I'm rooted in community also means that when you think about, even when I'm laughing, I'm taking this a little bit of my fellow Cancer, your husband, Mark, when he talks about freedom and we're looking for what that freedom is. But here's the thing and why that's so pivotal. And we bind because we're Cancers. But let me tell you why that's pivotal and why when I thought about it after the fact was that if I'm still rooted within community and understanding what that is, Black people, freedom is liberation. That's, we talk about equity, inclusion, and that's a part of what, it's liberation. Like, how do we liberate and what that is? And that comes down to economic empowerment. Forget all this, there's a lot of other stuff, I'm not negating that, but liberation also ties into money.
Yeah.
And so if I'm able to put on a Black-owned business, such as you, with your audio-visual setup, or if I'm able to put on a florist or a communication specialist, then I'm going to put that on. And I'm going to continuously do that. I don't look for the kickback. That's people's thing. They could do that. Ain't my thing. I don't need, because I know I'm going to get that back. I know that if they have an opportunity, they're going to put me on to it, right? And so I move within the sense of how I stay connected in community is I continuously put my people on. And it might be just a sister I just met that's baking cakes and but you my people, because I know that at the end of the day, holistically being rooted within that liberation is going to pass down, and hopefully she can then hire somebody else or he can hire somebody else, or I can continuously put them on. And so even when we do recap reports for all of our clients, a part of our recap report is we talk about how we put money back into the community, how it went to women, minority-owned businesses, and we put the percentages, and we talk about the money, because that is truly when you're talking about from a liberation perspective. And so when I think about the work that we do, that truly is what freedom is in my perspective.
Yeah.
So that's how I stay rooted within community.
I'm not in love with the word balance.
Ain't no such thing.
Okay. However, I am very curious about how you are meaningfully showing up in the spaces that you care about, right? So knowing that you are a daughter, you got a whole bunch of kids and young people that you are the mentor of. You are a sorority. You're in a sorority sister. You have lots of sorors. How do you meaningfully show up in these spaces? Not necessarily balanced 30, 30, 30, 25, 25, 25, 25. But how are you meaningfully showing up in the spaces that you care about?
I love how you tee that question up, because I tell people there's no such thing as balance. Some is going to give. Some is going, you're going to either be a great daughter, you're going to be a great girlfriend, a great colleague, whatever the case may be.
Today, maybe tomorrow I might be better, right?
And I have accepted that. I've embraced that, right? So there are certain times where I have been at a point for midnight golf that I was all in. And now my time doesn't allow for that I still show up on Mondays and Wednesdays and do what I can. But it might be a couple of young people that listen to this podcast, and they might be like, I ain't heard from Miss Sommer, because I had to step away in certain things. And I'll tell them, like, listen, you got to give me grace. I think that's what happens a lot of times, especially for Black women, and why you think about our health and challenges. We don't give ourselves enough grace, but ironically, a lot of people don't give us grace either. Sure. So I ask for that grace. And so I know, with my mother, only child, and I'm like, hey, mommy, this is how it is today, but this is how it's gonna look tomorrow, you know? So I know that there is no such thing as balance, so something's just gonna have to give, and that it's an ebb and flow. So right now, it might be very focused around my business because it's new and what that is, and maybe I do sacrifice a little bit within my personal, but I am being a little bit more intentional, like, okay, I'm gonna force myself to buy some new golf clubs, because if I invest, because I'm cheap, then I'm gonna play. You see what I'm saying? So certain things are gonna be strategic, because I'm like, I can't keep playing with my golf clubs, and my friends say Jesus played with, that's how old they are. But it's fine.
You borrowed Moses.
Listen,
you borrowed Moses.
But I'm still killing it out here. I'm still longest drive. So y'all say what you want, right? Say what you want. So there are certain things that I do, and being more intentional and trying to find time to spend with my godchildren. You know, like, it's crazy. I hadn't really spent a lot of time with my godchildren, and their parents went skiing, and I was on detail, and we had a ball. Like, they got back. I said, I really love these. They is my booze.
They're big now too.
They are, but they my booze. Like, they're good. Like, they're good human beings, right? They're balanced human beings within that. But it's those types of things. I'm like, I have to do more of that, because even I haven't been able to hang with them lately. And they asked their mom the other day, like, well, when is Auntie Sommer gonna come pick us up and take us somewhere? And I was like, you better come on. Those are the reminders of how you gotta forget something and be okay. So a client might say, I was looking for this. You know what? I know you were. You didn't get it today. But you know when you might get it? Tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? But being okay versus being tethered to a phone, feeling stressed out. And I've told clients straight up, like, and if this ain't your groove, again, that's the beauty of being able to control it, because I can also manage everybody's expectations, especially clients and everybody else that we work with. But still doing it in excellence. We ain't janky, right? But it is a matter of like, hey, listen, I tried to get to that, but it just didn't work, and I want to make sure that I'm, that I am what you need and what I need as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the commitment that you have to excellence, but also not seeking perfection. It's gonna get done. It's gonna get done well.
I'm like that now.
Okay.
You get that high blood pressure. It break it down. You know what I'm saying? You come down. I'm like that now.
Are you a recovering perfectionist?
Listen.
Are you?
I'm a type A like a mug.
I mean, well, type A and be
but
a perfectionist.
type A like a mug, which is a hard one. That's like a mug. That's tough.
What was the turning point for that on you?
My health.
Oh, you're serious about the blood pressure. Okay.
Literally, it was like, what are we talking about? Like, to a point where I would have to plan everything, do everything. Then now my mother gets irritated because she's like, well, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, I haven't gotten that far in life yet. I can't get there. Like, this is where I am. Yeah. Those are ways for me to be able to manage that. So I still, it's funny because it's the book's good to great. So my dad gets mad because I'm like, I'm okay with good, dog. I'm okay, dog. Good is all right. But it is a matter of just trying to it's all relative on what greatness is. It's all relative on what good is. And I also, to that point, I talked about if this person's starting a business and they ain't got nobody to work, I'm also like, they whole D. They grade is a D. They a D.
A D plus?
A D, okay? A solid D. My C is an A in the real world in certain spaces. So it's a matter of just trying to be able to understand what I've done, how I've come about it, and where I am in my life is just not that serious. I really wish that, you know, that would have been a little bit more of introspective perspective as I was growing in my 20s and my 30s. And I think it would have probably evolved in how I handle relationships differently. But hey, you know, we here now.
Yeah. It is something when you think about the flexibility that entrepreneurship allows you. You know, I think about two things, for example. When I walked over to the bar, I was talking to Mateo, which is my husband's cousin. And she said, hey, how's the year starting out? Like, the year starting, you know, you going? And actually, for the past couple years, I haven't hit the years fast and furious. Like, my first 2 years, I don't do any training. I just sort of kind of creep into the year because once you hit it, once it starts, it just keeps going. It's one of the benefits, right? It's just more of a flexible approach. And the second thing I think about as it relates to flexibility, I remember probably last year, I was sitting at my desk and I was tired. And I was thinking to myself, okay, Jacqueline, you just got to get to 5 o'clock and then, you know, you'll be off work. Because I really be like, you working 9 to 5 as an entrepreneur, 8 to 5. And I was like, okay, you got a few more hours. And I was like, wait a minute, girl, just go upstairs and take a nap. Just take a nap and come back. Like, literally, you have this flexibility. And so that is a huge perk of, you know, being in this space. You work hard, right? But you have flexibility. I'm hoping that as you continue to grow, as you continue to venture into new spaces, that we'll have another conversation. But I am curious right now about what's next. What's next for Sommer Woods? What's next for Woods and Watts Effect? What's next for stuff that I don't even know about that you're working on?
Yeah, I think, you know, the real is as you get older, you start thinking about like your retirement and your money and your short-term, long-term disability, your life insurance, your investments. Like that's where it is for me, is trying to figure out, you know, when you first start a business, those first couple of years, you know that you might not make the money that you want, but you grow and you build. You know, what does that look like at a point where I'm 55? You know, what is that? A few years from now, because I'm 46, right? So like at 55, I would love to be like a snowbird, going back down to Alabama intentionally, because that's the closest of diaspora of African people that I love down in that space and the culture. And then really just trying to figure out how to maximize and do what we can. And then, you know, really, I have been so blessed. Like, I've been so blessed that every job and every opportunity, every project that I've received, I've just done the work and it's happened. Like, God has blessed me that I get the phone call, I get the project, I get the opportunity, that I just continue to step in that. I just continue to step in, just knowing that if I do what's right, if I stay with what is good, even when things look crazy. Like today, we had a community meeting today, and it was a mix up in the room space, and I thought we was going to have to cancel, and we didn't canvas and talk to the community, and the client was, you know, and I was just like, then all of a sudden, it worked out. Small world, brother I know, security, it's no problem, we'll just let you go in the lobby, right? Like, that's how I'm blessed, right? And so I think for me, the what's next is just continuing to be faithful and rooted in that, and continue to be who I am unapologetically, committed to community and space, and I believe that those blessings are ever turning that come back. That's was, you know, I would like to say, when people talk about the long-term goals and what those are, and with that, I don't know if I've done that, and my more intentional planning is around the financial strengths and what that is in terms of my own personal, how to do that. But from a business perspective, you know, we gonna ride this out and see what it looks like. That's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship, because you can always pivot. Yeah. I love what we do. I'm enjoying what we do. I think there's things that we can expand and we can grow. But I'm always excited to be able to pivot as well.
Yeah. Also, what I hear is, I hear your commitment to, but more importantly, your ability to take action, right? There are so many people that don't take action and don't do because they don't give themselves permission to start. And I think in so many of the spaces that you're in, you at least get started, and guess what? Like, the universe responds, the blessings respond, the community responds. We're like, oh, Sommer, you're working on that, like, just like you said early in your career. And so one of the big things, and always one of the big things that I always encourage our audience to take away from any conversation that I have, either solo or with a guest, is to start, because so many of your questions get answered in the action.
In the process.
Right? And even if you plan to the T and you have that perfectionist spirit, like me and Summer, quite honestly, like, you will never perfectly plan anything. So just get started, and so many of your questions get answered in the action. Sommer Woods, I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you.
I'm proud of you.
I am so proud of you. You just out here doing your thing. I'm inspired. I've been having a podcast to start for the last 3 years, and I haven't. So
oh, you know, I'm about to be on you now. You told the wrong person that you was about to do something.
Everybody's like, "Where is it at?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's sitting on the shelf. It's gonna be here one day." But no, I appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
You know, hopefully within that, you know, within the space and journey, you continue to be a part of that. And I would like to say, one of the things when we think about what's important when we talk about friends and community, I wouldn't be where I am without my friends being my third-party validators. I love that my people are in rooms and they speak up on my behalf when I'm not there. And so I continuously thank you and others that do that all the time, and also willing to share information. You know, I've called you about stuff like, "Girl, what they on?"
Like, "Girl, no, they got the money.
They got the money.
They got
where the
it.
money
Ask
at?
them for
where
the
money
money.
resides.
Where it resides.
Where the money resides. See
Where
what I'm saying?
yes.
See what I'm saying? Yeah, there we go.
So listen, thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I'm hoping that wherever you're at in the world, that you've enjoyed our conversation. I'm hoping that you're safe, you're healthy, and you're well. But most importantly, that you're giving yourself permission to truly start the things that you want to do. Don't leave just yet, because a few other really quick things. I want you to hear us, but I also want you to see us continuously. So head over to YouTube, youtube.com/@MagicalJax. Like and subscribe so that you can see when other video podcast episodes come out. I also want to remind you that if you are an auditory learner like I am, someone who likes to listen to their podcast, head over to Apple Music, head over to Spotify, head over to Google Play or JacquelineandBaker.com and subscribe, because you get the opportunity to hear this podcast as well. And last but certainly not least, I want to say thank you again to this month's sponsor, which is the Monique Woods Insurance Agency. Wonderful partner, and wonderful to have her on board and supporting what we do here at the Just Start From Ideas to Action podcast. Once again, I hope you're safe, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you're well. And I expect that wherever you're at in the world, you are going to give yourself permission to start the things that you truly want to do. All right, take care of yourself, and we'll see you again soon. Ciao.